It's really digging in and figuring out, okay, why do we not want mom to move? And how can I get you from point A to point B? How can I address those emotions you're feeling, get them out in the open, and then try to get you to see those in a different light?
What if there were no objections in senior living sales and only emotions? This week's guest believes the fastest path to more move-ins and longer stays is learning to hear the emotion under every hesitation and earning trust through real conversations.
Welcome to From Leads to Leases, a CCR growth podcast that helps senior living providers transform their complex challenges into opportunities. Listen in for stories from industry leaders, innovative strategies, and insights. And with our expertise, learn how to increase occupancy faster, guaranteed.
Welcome back to another episode of From Leads to Leases, the podcast that dives deep into the senior living and senior care industries, bringing you insights, strategies, and stories from the experts at the forefront of innovation, leadership, and care. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, a full-service marketing and growth agency that's exclusive to the senior living industry. And through this podcast, I'm here to guide you through the evolving landscape of senior care, exploring the innovations, strategies, and leadership insights that are shaping the future of the industry. So whether you're a provider, a caregiver, or industry leader, this show is here to help you make informed decisions and create meaningful impact. All right, today's guest is Candace Greenwood. She has a Master's of the Arts in Senior Living Housing and is a certified senior advisor. She spent more than 15 years in senior housing after an earlier career in advertising. Her personal entry point was family, navigating dementia and fall-related safety risks for her grandparents. And that experience, plus roles from community marketing to regional leadership and consulting, informs her practical approach to discovery, to training, and retention. She's also the author of Building the Bridge, Increasing Census and Decreasing Resident Churn in Senior Housing. So, Candace, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hi, Jerry. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be chatting with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really interested to talk more about the book and just to talk about your approach to sales and just your overall experience in the industry is so interesting because you've seen it from both sides, both the family side and the business side of things. And I wanted to start just before you were training teams, you sat on the family side of the table and that vantage point shaped, your understanding of the importance of trust, of empathy, and having like a real plan for next steps. What early touch point matters most for building trust with adult children, do you think?
In most cases, not all, but in most cases, it's one of those early touch points. Every once in a while, we'll get an adult family member that will call to get information because they're pre-planning. They want to know, okay, if something happens, what am I going to do? What's my plan? And there are some overthinkers that want to have that plan in place long before an emergency ever comes up. But that's not the reality of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Usually when we get that early phone call or that early walking into the community, it's because they are in crisis mode. Mom had a fall and had surgery and is in rehab, and rehab saying she's not safe to go home, or the family comes home for the first time in several months or a year and find that, okay, that's not eating or taking his medication the way he's supposed to. Mom can no longer remember how to operate the stove or what the name of the neighbor she's lived next door to for the past 20 years is. They're in crisis mode, in circles with no earthly idea of what to do. We're the industry experts. We do this every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Our job at that point, when they're spinning in circles, is to help them figure out, okay, how can I deal with this situation that I've never experienced before in my life? How can I figure out how to get a situation in place or get a good plan in place for mom or dad while I'm still trying to juggle my own family, my own job, my own household, all of this other stuff that's going on that's just creating more and more turmoil for them? How do we help them put a plan in place? And if we're able to be their calm in the midst of that storm, we're going to be able to help them put the right plan in place. Whether that plan is our community or not, I feel it's still our role as leaders in the industry to help them put the right plan in place.
What did being on the family side teach you that most sales playbooks miss?
If I am considering moving a loved one into your community, I am in essence entrusting you with the care and safety of one of the most important people in my life. I have to trust you because there is always a risk when we look at moving someone into senior housing or when we look at moving someone into a new situation, period. There is a risk involved in that. It's a big risk. And we're asking for some pretty big trust if we want to be the ones to do that. And I think we have to show that we care about that new potential resident and the family as the unique, quirky, individual, sometimes obstinate people they can be on a day-to-day basis. They're not just a list of medical conditions or diagnoses. And I think, unfortunately, in our industry, we tend to focus on the list of medications and the list of diagnoses more than we focus on what did Mary do with her life? What are the favorite things that she got to accomplish? What were the things on her bucket list that she got to check off? Is she willing to tell me about those great stories? And I think by really leaning in and getting to know them on an individual level, we're automatically earning that trust. And that's what we have to have if we want them to move in. Again, if I'm going to move my nanny, okay, one of the most important people in my world, if I'm going to move her into a senior housing community, I have to feel that the community is the right fit, but I've also got to trust you because you're the one I'm entrusting her to. So I have to feel comfortable with you. And I think that our industry as a whole, I think we sometimes miss the mark on that.
From Leads to Leases is brought to you by Growthly, a smarter way for boutique senior living operators to grow. I've been in marketing for almost 3 decades, and through my agency, I've helped some of the largest senior living providers attract qualified leads and fill rooms faster while lowering their acquisition costs. But one thing kept bothering me. While working with larger communities, I kept meeting smaller operators, 10 to 50 bed communities that were struggling to compete with the big box providers because they don't have the same budget, staffing, or support behind them. And as a small business owner myself, I get that. You're wearing 5 different hats, you're trying to fill rooms while still giving great care, and that's exactly why we built Growthly. Growthly takes everything we've learned from helping large operators fill their buildings and makes it accessible to smaller communities without retainers, without long-term contracts or inflated costs. It's a performance-based partnership, and you only pay when we deliver move-ins. We help you stand out online, stop depending on referral agencies, bring in qualified families, and fill your community faster. Growthly is built for your small community and designed for big results. Learn more at growthlyseniorliving.com. I did a little bit of research, and more than half of Americans turning 65 are going to develop a disability serious enough to require long-term services and supports. So it's hard sometimes, I think, for sales professionals to split that, that there's the human factor here. There's this person who's had this life, and then there's this other side of what, how do I place this person? Is this a good fit for our community? It's really a challenge, I think.
Yeah, it is. And you hit the nail on the head. Is this a right fit for our community? Because it has to be a good fit on both sides.
Both sides, yeah.
We have to be a good fit for that, for that particular family or that particular individual, but at the same time, they've got to be a good fit for us. That's why there are so many different types of senior housing communities. I've worked at some where it was like walking in the front door was like walking onto a cruise ship. Beautiful buildings, the big sweeping staircases, the immaculate interior decorating, everything. It looks like it should be on a postcard. And then I've had others where you walk in and it feels like walking into your grandmother's living room. And the reason for that is there are people that want to live on a cruise ship. Yep. And there are people that want to live in something that's much more homey. They want to be, when they come home at the end of the day, they want to walk into grandma's living room. They don't want to walk into a cruise ship. So, and then that doesn't even mention all of the communities that are somewhere in between grandma's living room and a cruise ship. So, and I think it really is making sure that we do find the right fit from both sides of the table.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. I totally agree with that. Talking about the book a little bit, one of the core metaphors you use is picturing like a raging river of fear, guilt, anger, betrayal, and denial. Marketers needing to earn the right to guide families by laying those bricks of trust, compassion, understanding, and honesty. How do you teach teams to spot the dominant emotion in the moment? Because I feel like that's something they often miss.
Dominant is definitely the key word there, because every situation we walk into, it's not going to be one emotion we're dealing with. It's usually one big, huge, giant, tangled knot of emotions. And we have to figure out really how to untangle that and then kind of address them one at a time. Fear is usually involved in, at least to some extent, in every single situation we deal with, even those times when it is the senior themselves that have reached out. So this is their plan. There's still some fear involved. And we just have to figure out, okay, is the denial that they're facing, is they're adamant, I don't need help? Is it fear, meaning yes, they do need help. They just don't want to admit they need help. So we got some fear and some denial in there. And is the fear figuring out, is it leaving the home that they shared with their now deceased spouse, that, you know, they built this home together, they've shared it for the past 65 years? Is that the concern, or is it my grandmother? They're just being obstinate. They want their own way. Okay, so it really is a matter of, is what are they afraid of? Sometimes it's leaving that home that they've spent the last 65 years with their now deceased spouse. Some, it's leaving their safe space, especially for those that are starting to show some of the early signs of dementia. Being in their safe space where they've got cues that they can kind of lean on, where they can fake their way through a lot of situations. Leaving that safe space means we're now going to shine a big giant spotlight on, oh, dad's starting to lose his memory. Or is it they're afraid that if we move, all of a sudden I'm going to be abandoned. My family's going to stop coming to see me. So I think it's really asking those deep dive questions to figure out what is the real situation. Because if we're not doing a complete, what I call conversational discovery, which is asking those big broad stroke questions, learning about what has their life been up to the point that I'm now talking to them about needing supportive care. There is a whole life that's been lived there. And if we're truly going to help them put the right plan in place, we've got to make sure that we are uncovering enough of that story that we're able to make sure this is the right fit. And if we're not the right fit, okay, how can I still help guide them on this path? Again, we're the industry experts. We're the ones that are supposed to help them put that plan in place. If I don't know what is truly driving whatever the emotion that is, whether it's fear, denial, we know guilt is unfortunately a big one as well.
Yeah.
If we don't know what kind of led up to this point, we're not going to be able to help them untangle that big giant knot of emotions. And if we can't do that, we're going to have a harder time getting them from point A to point B, or as the metaphor in the book, we're going to have a hard time getting them from one side of that raging river where they are now over to the other side of that raging river where our beautiful community is. We can only get them across that bridge if we do develop that level of trust, because the first thing people buy is not the community, it's not the care, it's not the activities of the dining program. The very first thing they buy when they pick up the phone and talk to us, or when they walk into our building, is us. It's one human being talking to another human being, figuring out what got them to this point, and then determining, can we help them? And if so, what is that plan going to look like? And I think we lose sight of that sometimes. We're so focused on, we've got to increase census, that we're not necessarily thinking, am I increasing census the right way? Am I increasing census in a way that is going to minimize churn? I don't want to be bringing them in the front door just as fast as they're going out the back door. And at the same time, am I creating an experience where people are going to want to tell their friends, or people from church, or people from the community center, wow, you won't believe this great place that mom just moved into. They do this and this and this, and they got to know her and her interest in music, and they focus on the fact that she really used to love to ballroom dance, and they play big band music. And I mean, I've seen people give we're talking absolutely over the top recommendations, because we were in the right place at the right time, and we helped them put the right plan in place by getting to know them. Not a list of diagnoses, not a list of medications, not, oh, We just need to get someone in room 102. We really got to figure out that, all right, we just moved Miss Johnson into memory care, and our team needs to know that Miss Johnson used to love, she and her now deceased husband used to love to go ballroom dancing. If she's having a bad day, first thing we need to do, pop on some music, you give her a little big band, and she's just going to be bopping along to it. And all of a sudden, her behaviors have just melted away and she's settled down. But if we don't, if we don't learn that in the beginning so that we can kind of keep building on that history, we're not ever going to get to the point where we instinctively know and our team knows immediately how to calm Miss Johnson down if she's having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what the conversational discovery is all about. It's not just getting the information I need to help you figure out, is this the right fit for mom? Is this the right fit for mom? And what information do I need to make sure that it continues being the right fit for mom so that you feel comfortable recommending us to people at work, at church, whatever. And that's really where we start to see our census grow. Yes, we're going to be out doing our outreach. We're going to be doing the things that we do every day now. But if we can take that and then have raging fans of our community on top of that, that's when we're going to consistently see that, that 98, 99, 100% occupancy, which is what we're really looking for.
I love how you frame emotions in the book too. You don't just focus on, fear, anger, guilt, denial. You really break down all, it's fear of leaving their home. It's fear of abandonment, fear caused by misconception. I love all talking down into those concepts because it's not just fear, right? There's something behind that fear and you're helping to highlight what those things are. So I love that section of the book.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun with that one.
And all the scenarios that you put into the book too, I think it's really cool to just be able to read that and understand that situation right off the bat. It's really cool.
And every story, every role play that's in the book is a real life situation. I changed the names and changed locations because I'll be honest, I have worked in some communities that if I mentioned the town it's in, you'd know immediately what it is because there's not a whole lot of competition in the area. So all of those are real scenarios. They're real people that I met, real examples of what those families faced before they got to the point of picking up the phone and calling me.
Talking about emotions too, one of the things you mentioned in the book was just that overcoming objections. It's actually a mystery that in senior living, the barrier is emotional. It's not mechanical and it needs naming and validation. Which do you think denial is the most complex to work through?
Yes. It is because we have to getting someone past the point of denying I don't need help. And let's be honest, every single person who has been in senior housing for more than 5 minutes has heard, I don't need help. The family needs to stop worrying. I'm just fine. That's a common theme. I know I dealt with that with my own family as well. But to get them to the point where we have enough information about what has happened and what has led them from we had a minor fall to now the family's looking at the possibility of supportive care because we keep introducing ourselves to the floor on a regular basis or we keep putting ourselves in situations that are going to endanger us. First of all, we've got to do an in-depth discovery to figure out what those situations are, and that requires a whole lot of trust before the family is going to open up and explain all of the times that mom forgot her medication or the fact that dad fell out in the front yard going to try to pull the trash cans back in, couldn't get up, and it was actually a neighbor who had to help him up. And it was 103 that day and he laid out there for an hour. We really have to earn their trust to get them to the point where they're willing to entrust us with that information. And then we have to use that information to firmly but gently and very carefully and very respectfully walk them through all of the times when, now, Jerry, you told me that last week you fell when you were trying to bring the trash cans in. Is that right? All right. And didn't you say you laid out there in the yard for about 45 minutes before your neighbor got home and was able to help you up? And wasn't that the day it was over 100 degrees? Now, Jerry, what do you think could have happened if your neighbor had worked late that day, or let's say he decided to stop and have dinner on the way home, what could have happened? Or what do you think might have happened if he had not been there to help you up? And then from that situation, getting him to see in a very gentle, loving way, these are the things that you have done that have put yourself at risk. Everything was fine, but what happens if next time it's not? Getting them to see that and to admit that is hard for them. That is a huge emotional hurdle for them to get past. But at the same time, it does put us in a position of being there again to be their guide. Jerry, I know that this is a big decision. And I know that the idea of leaving your home is scary. Every single person I talk to has gone through exactly the same thing. I can't make that fear go away. But what I can promise you I'm going to do is I'm going to be here every step of the way to walk you through this process so that I can't make the fear go away, but I can at least tell you I'm going to be here to hold your hand. You're not going to go through it alone. So in that kind of situation, we're addressing the denial because they all deny they need help. But at the same time, we know oftentimes that denial is based on I'm afraid of leaving my home. I'm afraid of walking away from the memories I've built in this home with my now deceased spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're able to get them to open up to us about what has happened, and then we gently but firmly walk them through, this is what you told me. Now, do you see what could potentially happen, and how are we going to keep that from happening? Again, it's just, a lot of it is just showing I care about you as an individual. And I've had situations where I've had to explain, a very similar to the partial role play I just rolled out for you. But I've had to point out to families that, do you understand the fear the kids have of you falling and laying out in the yard for hours? And yeah, in fact, there's a role play I tell in the book where the laying out in the yard waiting for the postman, or the postman happened to drive up to the half-mile driveway
Right.
to deliver a package, and saw that my soon-to-be new resident what had fallen and was laying outside. And I had to walk them through, and what I really had to do on that one was walk them through it and point out, do you understand the fear that your son had about what would have happened if you had not had a package that the postman needed to deliver that day? What could have happened if no one had come? This was Friday afternoon. Your family wasn't scheduled to come see you until Sunday. Do you understand what could have potentially happened had the postman not come, and it was the family that found you? And do you really want them to experience something like that? And oftentimes that, putting it in those terms, kind of makes that light go off of, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. So a lot of the concept of overcoming the emotions is really, how do we help them see it in a different light? How do we point out that, yes, there are times you are perfectly fine until you're not? And what is it about those until you're not situations that terrify your family? So a lot of it's really just trying to get them to see it in another light.
I know you mentioned discovery too, in that explanation. Do you feel like, I know we had talked before about discovery being kind of most of the time like an interrogation. I mean, do you feel like you can open doors like that in a discovery session, or do you feel like what you're describing is something that comes later down the path?
Discovery is an all day in every single interaction we have with them. We're learning new things each conversation, each touch point, each visit we have with that family. And I think my viewpoint is very much especially that first phone call. That is invaluable information we can get. And I know that there is a trend with some operators now to don't do discovery on the phone. Your goal is, in 5 minutes or less, we want to convince them to come into the building. Okay, that's great. And eventually, yes, I absolutely want you to come in my building. But before you set foot in my building, I want to get as much information as I can about what's going on, about where your mental state about this entire process is. And I want to figure out, yes, while I do want to get you in my community, I want to know when I get you here, what am I going to do with you to help you put
Mhm.
the right plan in place? And I think if we do that slam and jam of, okay, yeah, my name's Candace. Okay, great. I'm sorry mom fell. Hey, how about if you come in and have coffee with me at 2 o'clock tomorrow? Really? What? I'm sorry. At that point, if I'm on the other side of that phone, I am no longer someone that you're trying to help. I'm a number that you're trying to get in your front door. And that to me defeats the process. It defeats the purpose of that initial phone call. I think that, and it was funny because there are times some of my initial phone calls when I was doing that first round discovery, it was not uncommon for me to have a 30, 45-minute, hour-long conversation.
Mhm.
When I get off the phone, okay, first of all, yes, I do have them set up to come in for, to come in to see me. Not only are they coming in to see me, they're going to come in to have lunch with me. Okay. I know exactly what's going on. I know everything I need to know about the adult family member I'm talking to help deal with their concerns and their fears. I know most of what I need to know about their family member, about the one that they're looking at needing assisted. I know as much as I possibly can after that first phone call. And so when they come in, when Sally comes in to have lunch with me to talk about mom's release from the hospital and then the fact she's going to be in rehab for a couple of weeks, but they're saying she can't go home. I know what Judy's dealing with in her world. I know how concerned she is about the fact that she's trying to do this from 2 states away. I know
Mhm.
from my own experience, that is not easy. So she's having to try to figure out how can she take off work, come to town for a couple of days, figure out what's going on, put a plan in place, arrange the movers. The list just goes on of what she has to do. I know all of that's going on before she ever walks in my front door. I can truly wow her with a tour by having, not only am I going to know that, okay, mom loves to have, she loves to wake up in the morning and sit and drink her coffee and watch the sun come up every morning. Okay, I know I need to make sure that I have a great east facing room with big windows so mom can sit there and enjoy the sun coming up while she sips her coffee every morning. At the same time, I know that the daughter, 2 states away, is trying to put this plan in place in 3 days because that's all the time she can afford to take off work. When she comes into my community, not only have I figured out this is the perfect apartment for mom and these are the reasons why, but okay, I know you're trying to do all this remotely here. Here's a list of people that can help pack, people that can help move. Here are some churches in the area that have volunteers that will come help do this. I know you're going to have a lot of stuff of moms.
Mhm.
These are, this is the list of some places that do estate sales. This is a list of places that appreciate donations, and this is what they do with those donations. So when she comes in, I'm able to give the daughter not only the perfect apartment based on what she told me mom likes, I'm able to point out these are the activities, and based on what you said mom loves to do, these are the ones that I think she's going to be most interested in. You told me that her favorite food is, for some reason, pecan pie seems to be a big one. Okay, you told me one of mom's favorite desserts is pie. And, talking about the fact that on our activity calendar, we have a baking club. Or we've got a chef that is known for making unbelievable homemade pies. We have those at least once a week. I really think she's going to love those. But being able to truly customize and personalize that tour with what is basically at least a partial plan. I'm able, and when that daughter walks in and she's spinning around in circles because her world is turning upside down, I'm able to just to walk in. I can be her calm in the storm, and I love it when we have an adult family member walk in. They're spinning. We start the conversation and you can literally just see them go, that's really what we want. We want them to have that big, deep, oh my God, somebody understands it. We want that sigh. We want, oh wow, okay, yes, I feel I can trust this person to help me put a plan in place with my mom. And that's really what we're doing. That's what we're looking for. How can I be your port in the storm? Okay. Your moment of calm in this this ever-changing, constantly spinning world of, oh my God, I don't know what to do with mom. If I can be your safe space, I've now earned your trust. You're gonna trust me to be mom's safe space as well.
In your experience too, is there like one or two discovery questions that you feel like consistently open doors in those situations that a senior advisor should have in their back pocket?
A lot of it is more the tone of the questions than a magic bullet secret question.
Yeah, just nuance.
Unfortunately we don't have a decoder ring for this one. But a lot of it is just focusing on getting to know the individual.
Yeah.
One of the first stories in the book is actually it was a real life situation. It was a situation where mom fell, several injury falls. Last one had led to surgery, extended rehab stay. Daughter was 2 states away. She was an accountant. It's the early part of the year, so she's in crisis mode, trying to figure out, how can I do this? She's got teenage kids of her own, so she's really spinning in circles trying to figure out, oh my God, what am I going to do? And when my initial discovery call with her was probably a good 45 minutes to an hour, it started out with, I need to get information about your facility and the costs. That's how most of our calls start out. But if we're able to open that with, I would love to I want to make sure that the information I'm giving you is relevant and makes sense, because there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle here. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions so that I can make sure the information I'm giving you is relevant to you? Is that okay? Okay. 9.9% of the time, they're going to say yes. Every once in a while, you'll get some, no, I just want a price. Okay. Not a lot you can do with those. But the vast majority of people are willing to answer those questions if you tell them why you're asking. If you just launch into rapid fire fill in the blank questions, they're going to be like, nope, go away. But if we ask the questions and explain why, they usually agree. And then at that point, tell me, okay, what's going on with mom? What made you pick up the phone today? They're going to give us part of the story. Wow. Is this the first? How badly was she injured in the fall? That's going to give us the next piece of the puzzle. And then
Mhm.
okay, it sounds like you've been through this before. Has she had other injury falls? But just taking those questions, listening to the answer so that we know what our next follow-up question needs to be. But a lot of it is asking those broad stroke open-ended questions and then layering to clarify the information they give us. Not being so prepared for, okay, I need to fill out the next open spot on my form. Let me rapid fire the next question. Oftentimes, just tell me about what's going on. We'll start the conversation. Then, like in the example from the book, the first one, I actually, by the time we got off the phone, I knew that mom and dad had met when dad was in the service. They got married immediately after. They had been married for 65 years. Before dad passed away. They used to own a business. Mom started she did a lot of volunteer work. She actually helped start the daycare center at the biggest church in the area that was still going on 30 years later. But I mean, I had a list of things that I knew about, not her medical conditions and her medications. That came out, that's going to come out in the conversation automatically anyway. We don't really have to ask about that. But asking about their life beforehand, what led up to that point, what are and I even always ask, have you talked to mom about the possibility of moving? Okay. If it's a yes, how'd she react? Okay. 9 times out of 10, she dug her feet in. Nope, she's not doing it. Or even if they say, no, I haven't talked to her about it yet. Okay. My next question is, how do you think she's going to react? Because again, we need to know what we're up against. And even with how do you think she's going to react? Again, we got about a 90%. I think she's going to dig her heels in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but unless it is the potential resident themselves reaching out to us to get information, which does happen, not as often as adult family members calling, but it does happen. But unless it is the potential resident themselves calling to get information or coming in to get information, we know we've got a pretty good chance of they're going to dig their heels in. And it's that information that we gather in that discovery, those broad stroke questions, where did they grow up? Tell me about their family life. What did mom do while dad was building his electric business? What did mom do? Really getting to know the things that are important to the family and most importantly, the things that are important to that particular resident. Those are the things that get us past the hurdles of, nope, I'm fine. I'm digging my heels in. I don't need to move. But if we don't have that information, if I'm not able to talk to her about the fact that, yes, you did a great job of raising those three kids. The kids have gone on to do these things. And wow, it's amazing that you actually were the one that set up that daycare center at the church. It's still going strong today. In fact, 3 of my caregivers' kids go there after school. That's an amazing program. If I can't have that kind of conversation, that kind of, uh, I know these are the things that are important to you, I'm not ever truly completely going to gain their trust. And I'm definitely not going to do it quickly. And in this industry, it is a matter of, I want to gain your trust. I want to gain it quickly. And I want you to know that I'm sincere in my interest in what's going on with your family. I'm not filling out a form. So, in fact, am a big proponent, and I actually got pushback on this from the powers that be several times. Never, ever took discovery notes on the discovery form. I didn't. Mine was always just a notepad, and I was scribbling fast and furious. Anybody else would have thought it was my own version of some sort of Greek shorthand, because it was not legible to anyone but me. And oftentimes it would be 1 or 2 words would be all that I would write down. But I knew that, okay, if I remember Hometown Electric is what I wrote down. Okay, that's gonna jog me as when I'm going in to put my notes in after this hour-long phone call. I know those 2 words, that one company name, is gonna be enough for me to remember, okay, that was the company that Dad started after he got out of the service. It's those key words that are going to trigger me to remember everything else they told me. And that was always how I took discovery. And in fact, in the book, I actually have examples of several discovery forms, many of which do lead you to the Spanish Inquisition, if you're actually following it. And then I had an example of the things of one of the forms that I used. When my teams they didn't feel comfortable enough just literally scribbling it on a notepad. They wanted some semblance of organization to it. Okay, that's great. So I put together just a very simple, these are the personal things, this is the history, this is favorite foods, and over here in this little small thing, and this is the kind of the last thing we're going to address, this is what's medically going on with Mom, because that's going to come out automatically. It's everything else on the form that we really have to focus on. So, very unorthodox way of doing it, I know.
I love
But
it,
it worked well for me.
Yeah. You mentioned earning their trust early, obviously earning it early and then maintaining that throughout the whole process. When you get to the tour, or let's say after the tour, I know when you deal with family members too, not everybody's there yet, right? Some people are closer to saying, yes, let's do this. And then somebody might not be as sure. And then somebody else might be really hesitant. How do you keep everyone aligned after the tour?
That's always a juggling act.
Yeah.
It usually leads to multiple touch points. Okay, there have been if I'm dealing with 3 adult children who are all, we'll say, equally going to make the recommendation or make the decision for Mom, I may have 3 different touch points with that family throughout the course, because I need to talk to each one of those kids, because they're going to be, like you said, they're at a different point on their path. So I need to reach out and touch base with each one of them on a regular basis to make sure that I'm moving each one of them through the process. I do, however, need to make sure I know who my biggest supporter is, who the most influential is, and I need to know who my biggest detractor is, because I'm going to make sure that my biggest fan, I'm going to keep a really close contact with them. The person that I know is going to be the biggest influencer, I'm going to have to maybe be a little more persuasive with them. But again, I've got to know where they stand. So I've got to have that consistent communication. My detractor, it's a little bit harder with them, but I'm still going to go through the process with them as well. I'm going to try some of the same things that we would go through with the family of, I need to figure out, okay, if you're a detractor, if you don't want Mom to do this, I've got to figure out why. It's one of those emotions that we're dealing with. It's either fear, denial, guilt, or anger or betrayal. It's one of those. I've got to figure out, okay, which one is it and why? Is it truly that you don't want Mom to move because you don't think it's a good idea? That's not common. Is it you don't want Mom to move because you promised Dad that you'd make sure you took care, that you would take care of Mom once he was gone? Or is it, and unfortunately we see this on occasion, luckily not a lot, is it you don't want mom to move because you don't want mom to spend your inheritance. So it's really digging in and figuring out, okay, why do we not want mom to move? And how can I get you from point A to point B? How can I address those emotions you're feeling, get them out in the open, and then try to get you to see those in a different light so you can understand you're not betraying the promise you made to dad. You shouldn't feel guilty about wanting mom to move into supportive care, because that promise you made to dad did not mean that you were going to put your life on hold and be the one doing that hands-on care. Based on what you've told me about your father, it sounds like what he really wanted to do was just make sure that his wife was going to be taken care of. But do you really think that he'd want you to put your life on hold to do that? Or do you think he would really want you to get to enjoy being a daughter and spending time with mom? Because right now you're not doing that. You're not getting to be a daughter. You're a full-time caregiver. How much time do you actually get to spend and just sit and enjoy mom talking about all the goofy stuff you did as a kid, or the fact that dad used to be a huge prankster and he would hide stuff just to see how long it would take you guys to find it? Based on what you've told me, I don't think he would want you putting all that on hold. I think what he wanted from that promise is just making sure that you were going to make the right decision for both of you. And right now, it looks like that decision is getting mom help, because you can't do it all and get to be a daughter as well. And oftentimes, the families that I've talked to, especially if we do have someone that is a nope, mom's not moving, I promised, that's really what it boils down to. They made a promise to a now deceased parent to take care of mom or take care of dad without really understanding. I don't think dad meant for you to actually put your life on hold. I think dad just wanted to make sure that everyone was taken care of. And it's getting them to see that promise that they made from a different perspective.
Talking about training too, this is a big area that I think a lot of operators are lacking in. I mean, I think they underinvest in training, and I think a lot of it has to do with staffing shortages. But senior living is an emotional landscape, but it's also complex. I had a previous guest who talked about senior living sales being more of like a B2B sale than a B2C sale, because it's complex. It's a huge decision, and it's usually something that requires, a lot of different decision makers in the process. What do you think belongs in, say, like a 90-day onboarding for a community-based marketer or salesperson that, what type of training would be most beneficial?
Well, again, a little controversial,
Yeah.
but I first of all think that one of the things we need to teach our community-based marketers to do is we're talking about handling everyone else's emotions. We also need to teach them how to handle their own. Because let's be honest, it is the reality of what we do. We are coming into our residents' lives at the end of theirs. Now, that could be 6 weeks, 6 years. We don't know, but we do know that at some point we are going to lose them. I've seen many good marketers never be able to fully bounce back after they lose a resident that they've grown close to. And we need to teach them how to deal with that. And I think that's something that we miss. I think it's also important that we teach them how to craft their own story. We all entered this industry for a reason. In most cases, there was something that prompted our change into this industry. And we need to teach them how to succinctly explain that, because again, it shows the human side. Okay, it shows the passion and the heart for what we do. Biggest thing we can teach them is discovery, discovery, discovery.
Yeah.
Everyone hates role plays. We do. I know I'm probably one of the few people on the planet that I think they're fun. I enjoy them. I know I'm weird, but that's okay. But I know most people hate them. But as I usually explain to my trainees, we're all going to trip over our tongues when we're learning something new. It's just part of being human. We're going to stick our foot in our mouth. We're going to fall over our words, and we're just totally and completely going to screw it up. It happens. It's just part of the learning process. I would much rather do that in a role play where it's not going to cost me anything. It's not going to cost me a move-in. It's not going to cost me commission. It's not going to cause me to not be able to help a family. Yes, someone may point and laugh, but that's okay. Okay, I can laugh at myself when I trip over my tongue. We should all be able to do that. But I think that practicing helps us learn to be good at what at our craft. Same thing with closing. If we've done a good conversational discovery, we've taken that deep dive, we've learned what the concerns are, we've addressed how our community can help solve those concerns. The next logical step in the process is asking for the move-in. It shouldn't be a big deal. It's just the next logical step in the process. But I think a lot of marketers freeze on that because they don't know quite how to, rather than looking at it from a standpoint of it's just the next logical step, they're looking at it, I've got to close them. I've got to ask for the move in. That can be as simple as, "Jerry, tell me what you think." And oftentimes they're going to give you everything you need to go, okay, well, it sounds like we may have found the perfect apartment. Let's go ahead and get that paperwork done. Okay, it's that simple. And a lot of times it is, as long as we've done our work up front. We can't do a Spanish Inquisition style discovery and expect closing or asking for the move-in to be simple. It doesn't work that way. One of the things that I always try to get my trainees to understand is the difference between pushing and guiding. If we're pushing someone, yes, we may be controlling the speed at which we're moving, but we're not controlling the direction. And they can lead us wherever they want to if we're trying to push them to make a decision. However, if I come meet you where you are, I earn the right to take your hand. I can then guide you across my bridge. And that's really what we want to get people to do. They've got to learn the difference between pushing and guiding. Okay. We have to push a little bit, but rather than pushing, I actually like to move. We want to prompt them. Okay. Because if we don't, we could potentially be leaving them in a situation that could become hazardous to them. So yes, we want to prompt them to make this move. But again, we can only do that by meeting them where they are and taking their hand and guiding them through the process. I think oftentimes we expect marketers to put together a plan of next steps to move an inquiry forward, but we don't necessarily tell them what that plan should look like. So we wind up with a lot of cookie cutter plans where they're going to take cookies or a plant out and do a home visit, and then we're going to ask them to move in. Okay, yeah, that's not a plan. That's a hope.
Right. Yeah. Hope is not a plan.
And hope is not a strategy. But we really need to tell them what that plan looks like and what should be included in a unique plan to move people forward. Another controversial one, but I think it is a big one. We also need to be able to teach a marketer when it's time to back off. If we're getting consistent resistance, they absolutely are not ready. Again, we're pushing, not guiding. I think they need to know that there are times it's okay to take a step back, give the family or the potential resident some time, and then readdress it in 30, 60 days. And as long as our lead funnel is full enough, we're not going to panic over giving the family some time or some space to breathe. It's when we've got 6 leads in our funnel and we need 7 move-ins for the month, that's when we start making decisions that could potentially push families in another direction. And we want to make sure that we're not doing that. Learning when to back off, and then learning that at times it's okay to back off, I think is important. And then lastly, we need to teach marketers what a successful home visit looks like. It's not just going in, dropping off the cookies or taking a plant. Yes, we want to take something with us, but at the same time, it's got to be something that's meaningful for them. If we're taking cookies and they hate chocolate chips, taking cookies didn't necessarily do us a whole lot of good. So we need to make sure that we're doing that successfully, and we need to teach them what to look for in a home visit. Is the house, does it look like it's clean and kept up? Are there trip hazards everywhere? Does it look like the kitchen's being used? Does it look like they're eating? At the same time, does it look like they're living their life in room and sleeping in their recliner in the living room? Or does it look like that they are functioning fairly well at home? So we really need to teach them what to look like, what a successful home visit looks like.
Last thing I want to talk to you about is, I guess, retention and reducing churn. There was a ASHA study that was done that said that feeling at home and camaraderie were strong predictors of satisfaction and willingness to recommend that community to others. And I know, You talk about the cultural fit and human connection being more important than amenities. How do you think teams can keep that feeling going after move-in?
Have always been um, a firm proponent of getting the entire team involved from the very beginning. The old adage, it takes a village to raise a child.
Mhm.
It takes a village to care for a senior as well. And especially if our teams are pulling together and they're cohesive, it's going to take our entire team. And I think that families should kind of get that feeling from the beginning. And we need to be imparting that feeling from the beginning of the process through the move in, through everything that we do for that potential family. We need to show that we're all in it together. It is a team. We want to make sure that every member of our team gets to know all of our residents to at least a certain extent. We know that each resident is going to bond a little more closely with some groups versus others. We see it every day. But one of the things that I have done to kind of help promote that team environment, that village or family environment
Mhm.
from the beginning is I actually promote the rest of my staff getting involved in the tour process. I incent my team to come up and do what I call a 15-second commercial. And I actually work with them so that they feel comfortable coming up anytime they see me in the building with a tour. They know they can come up, introduce themselves, say what it is they do and why they love what they do. The more people that our tours and our leads come into contact with when they're in the building is one more opportunity for them to bond with someone, which is going to help them, help make their decision easier and the understanding that this is the right spot for them. But at the same time, I've found that if I've had 3 or 4 people that have met my next potential resident throughout the course of tours, retours, lunches, assessments, whatever, they've come into contact with them and had a chance to chat with them. The rest of the team seems to learn about our new resident more quickly once a move in actually happens
Mhm.
because they've got their peers able to give anecdotal information about this potential new resident. They're not reading a social profile. They're not reading chart notes. They're not reading the physician's orders. They're actually, yes, they're reading all of those things, but at the same time, they're hearing from their peers about how the AM shift actually got to chat with Miss Jones when she came in for a tour a couple of weeks ago, and they had this great conversation about how they both grew up in the same area. Wasn't the area we were in, but they both grew up in they both grew up in Georgia, and they were able to kind of bond over that. Then John, who is our maintenance guy, actually had a chance to talk to Mr. Johnson about the fact that they were both in the service, they both served in the Marines, and they both love jazz. Okay. Just having stories like that allows us to more easily get to know our next potential resident, I think helps build that family feeling that yes, when I go in, when I walk into the dining room in the morning, I'm able to say good morning to all of my residents, that, knowing them individually, knowing them not just by name, but knowing that, hey, Betty, I see we're having pancakes again today. I know that's your favorite. Or even talking about, hey, did you see the activity calendar for this afternoon? We're showing one of your favorite Bogart movies. Did you see that we've got the concert jazz group from the college coming over on Saturday afternoon to play for you guys? Make sure you put it on your calendar to come down. Things like that show we know them as an individual. We know what's important to them. Those are the things that are going to help it be the right cultural fit and the right emotional fit for that potential resident. And knowing that it's the right fit is also going to help ease concerns for the family, knowing, yes, we made the right move. We made the right decision. This is the right position. This is the right place for mom.
Wow. Candace, thank you so much for all this awesome information. I just feel like I sat through a master class. I'm ready to graduate. That was so
I
awesome.
think you do wonders. You got an A.
Thank you. Well, tell me, where should our listeners go to learn more about your work, or if they want to work with you or get a copy of the book?
The book is available through Amazon. It is available both in a paperback and on Kindle. Okay, try to make it easy as possible. You can actually connect with me through Candace at buildingthebridgetraining.com. And I would be happy to chat with people that have questions specifically about the book or any of the role plays. I am also available for any of the operators that do maybe want to take a look at their team taking a deeper dive into this process. I am available to chat about training opportunities, whether it's a classroom training of pulling all of the marketers and the EDs together and figuring out how can we make a cohesive sales front and kind of a cultural shift in how we want to do discovery. I'm also available, depending on timing, at least also open about talking to operators about more of a SWAT team type training, where actually, feet on the street, actually going into the communities and doing some of that more in-depth side-by-side. Let me model, and then you're mimic, actually doing that on-site training as well. So,
Awesome.
and then one other thing that I did that I forgot to tell you about the last time we chatted is there is another book that I actually helped co-author, and it is actually geared towards family caregivers that are helping someone with those early to mid stages of dementia. And it's actually called Alzheimer's: The Uncertain Journey, Navigating the Challenges, the indispensable guide for caregivers and families. I'll be real honest, I was not a huge fan of the title. It's a little long, a little bit of a tongue twister, but the information in it is really good. It is actually based on the work of Professor Bernard Isaacs and his language of caring. So really kind of a similar situation in how I address the dealing with the emotions in Building the Bridge. His is kind of the same thing of really embracing the language and how we go about communicating with with family members or with people that are starting in those early to mid stages of dementia. And I found it's a great gift, a post-memory care tour gift, when you've got families that are still struggling with, okay, how do we make this decision? As we're making this decision, how do we help mom through those bad days? Stresses both of these are things that we can help mom get through those bad days, but at the same time, these are the things that you want to look at in investigating communities for mom. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we put all that in the show notes for our audience. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that too. So, all right. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to extend a huge thank you to you, Candace Greenwood, for joining us and sharing your hard-earned insights from the front lines of senior housing sales, from conversational discovery and reading emotions to building tailored plans that reduce churn and strengthen retention. Candace, your voice adds depth to a conversation our industry needs more of. If you want to connect with Candace or learn more about her work and grab both of those books, we've included all of that in the show notes. So as always, we hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the evolving world of senior care, covering everything from innovative care models and leadership strategies to family support technology and the future of aging. Also remember that From Leads to Leases isn't just an audio experience. We're also a video podcast. So if you want to see video versions of our episodes, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify channels. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. Thank you for joining us on From Leads to Leases, and please like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm truly grateful for your time and attention, and until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks, Candace.
thanks, Jerry. It was an honor.
Thanks for listening to From Leads to Leases. Are you ready to fill your rooms faster and increase occupancy? Visit ccrgrowth.com to learn about our Senior Growth Innovation Suite, a proven system to generate highly qualified, tour-ready leads, accelerate sales, and reduce acquisition costs. Let's connect and turn your challenges into opportunities. See you next time.